Welcome to the Darkstream. VoxDay, voxday.blogspot.com, and Streamlabs All-Star. Very exciting. Can you feel the status? So, Stefan Molyneux was the latest to fall afoul of YouTube. He came very close, apparently, to getting his channel shut down by YouTube. 2 strikes in 24 hours. And, this is the second time that YouTube has done something, messed around with Stefan's channel, and maybe it was an accident. Maybe it was a SJW inside the system, acting alone, rogue. But the reality is that this is something that is going to continue to happen to everybody on the right who has any sort of serious audience. One of the things that we have a tendency to think, one of the things that we have a tendency to believe when we are looking at our situation is we have a tendency to think that because we have a big audience, that YouTube needs us or that Twitter needs us. But if you look at what has happened, it's actually the bigger stars, it's the people with the bigger audience, the much larger subscription bases, who are being targeted first. InfoWars has a vastly bigger audience than the Darkstream does. Cernovich has far more people on Twitter than most of the other folks there. He and Jack Posobiec, I think they're over 500,000 apiece. And so this isn't what we have to understand is that if PewDiePie is not important enough to the platform providers, nobody is. If Alex Jones is not important enough to the platform providers, nobody is. And that means we have to always be ready to be deplatformed. We have to build our own platforms. And now maybe I made a mistake a couple of years ago in focusing first on replacing Wikipedia. I always have a strategic perspective. Maybe sometimes it's an excessively strategic perspective. But we chose to do Infogalactic first because it was one of the more challenging ones. Twitter wannabes were popping up left, right, and center. YouTube is difficult because of the way that it's run at such a huge loss. Facebook, we figured was doable, but a lot of people were also attempting to do that. If you look at one way, you can see how easy it was for them to add a Twitter functionality. There was freeze peach, there's all kinds of stuff. That was, so with Infogalactic, what was important to us was making sure that people had a non-SJW controlled information source. And now we do. We haven't started really pushing it yet because our functionality is not different enough yet. But the important thing is that you need to always be ready. The Darkstream is already on BitChute. Most of the archived videos are already on BitChute. I'm only really bothering with the last 2 months or so. That's kind of when we found our groove, as it were. But we're ready. If you're listening to this and you're not subscribed to the BitChute channel, I would encourage you to do so. Because we don't know how long YouTube is going to permit me to stream to YouTube. They might leave me indefinitely. I have a small audience, and it's quite possible that they've decided that the press attention that it would give me would actually be worse than just letting me continue with my, paltry 6,000, 10,000, whatever subscribers. It's very clear that they are concerned about the people with hundreds of thousands of subscribers for the most part. But this is not going to stop. There are some who are theorizing that this is only taking place in preparation for the midterm elections, and that once the midterm elections are done and it's not possible for the big social media influencers to affect the election in any way, that they'll ease up and that sort of thing. But the reality is that they're not going to ease up, because they're going to be very disappointed when the long prophesied blue wave does not arrive, when they realize that the 2018 elections indicate that Trump has overperformed and is almost certain to be reelected in 2020. I believe that we are going to see the SJW-controlled left go completely berserk after the disappointment of the 2018 midterms. And so this isn't going to stop. And it's important. I stress again, it's important for the right to be thinking actively in terms of building and supporting infrastructure. That's why I've had Voxiversity on BitChute from the beginning, even though I noticed that most of the views were not there. Somebody commented, MasterCard just started kicking people off Patreon. They're not the first people to get kicked off of Patreon. It's interesting that Patreon blamed MasterCard in much the same way that Stripe blamed Wells Fargo. But, as I said on Alex Jones' show a couple appearances ago, the financial sector is clearly where they are going to target. Now it doesn't always, there are ways around these things, but it's difficult. It takes time. We never know. We have a campaign on Indiegogo that we're going to be launching soon for a comic book. We have no idea whether that will be left alone or whether they'll interfere with it. Who knows? From what we understand, Indiegogo is a little bit more easygoing than Kickstarter. For all we know, Kickstarter will be fine. But this is the thing. The uncertainty is such that no matter who you are, no matter how big you are, no matter how small you are, no matter how radical you are, and no matter how moderate you are, you can't be certain what's going to happen. There is a fundamental unpredictability that is very, very economically unhealthy. This is not good for the economy. But you have to be prepared. You need to have at least 2 backup plans. We have backup plans in place. I haven't announced the new backing for Voxiversity yet, except for with the core backers. But when the next video comes out, we'll do that. And it's a different setup than what we're doing for the next Alt Hero comic. Why? Because we don't know where the next hiccup, where the next interference, where the next blockage is going to come from. We don't even know that there will be one. I'm not being pessimistic here. I'm simply being realistic, and I encourage every single one of you, from the famous comic artist Pro Secrets, who's here, to those of you who are supporting me and other creators and other projects, to be aware that we may have to move around and be a moving target. The important thing is to demonstrate to them that it doesn't matter what they do. Because one of the reasons that they stop doing this stuff is they know that it's not going to do any good. You know, I don't know why Google hasn't shut down my blog yet. I mean, I know why they haven't shut down my Gmail account. You know, they want to be able to read my emails. You know, that's fine. I mean, the NSA is reading them anyhow. Five Eyes is reading them anyhow. You know, why shouldn't Google? But, and it's also very good discipline to understand. This is why I don't engage in encrypting my email, because encryption is unreliable. Encryption can be broken, it can be revealed, and so don't fool yourself. Understand that everything you say via email, everything you say on the internet, everything you write electronically is something that you might one day see on the front page of the New York Times. If you understand that is the case and you conduct yourselves accordingly, I won't go so far as to say you have nothing to fear. You know, they can twist anything you say, they can, you know, take things out of context and so forth. But it's much safer than saying things you don't want to see in public, encrypting them, and trusting in that. What are your thoughts on Ocasio-Cortez running from Shapiro? I find that a very interesting question, because Shapiro has been running from me, and yet none of his supporters see this indicative of his cowardice, of his certainty that he will lose, and so forth. And yet, I would submit that a certain congresswoman, relative to Ben Shapiro, is vastly more important than Ben Shapiro relative to me. So I think it's laughable that a non-political candidate, a opinion commentator, should think that a U.S. congressman should feel any need to debate him whatsoever. I mean, Shapiro's position is not merely hypocritical; it's ludicrous. Let's see here. How can I do super chats? I don't have the channel YouTube monetized for obvious reasons. You know, I have no desire whatsoever to get in bed financially with Google. And so what you can do, if you like, is there's a way to donate through Streamlabs, and that would work. So if you want to do that, please feel free to do that, and then just put your question in with whatever notes they like to give. Is it wrong to hope that more voices on the right get banned? I don't think it's wrong. I think it's redundant. I mean, it's irrelevant. They are going to ban more voices on the right. I don't know what more is necessary to convince the big guns, the Cernoviches, the Molyneux, etc., to actually get in there and support institutions. They have to understand that this is not going to be to their maximum immediate short-term benefit. They have to understand that they're going to be giving away some of their valuable time, and maybe even some of the support that might go to them might go to these platforms instead. But that they have to view it, in my opinion, they should view it from an enlightened self-interest point of view and understand that this is going to benefit them in the long run. I'm getting a little bit tired, to be honest, of these guys who have had literally years of warning this stuff is coming. Suddenly, throwing out appeals to injustice and throwing out this rhetoric and these emotional appeals about how it's wrong that the left is doing what the left always does. I mean, it was wrong that the Bolsheviks shot the Tsar's family too, but that didn't stop them. The fact that it's wrong of them to do what they're doing to Stefan and Robert Spencer and others and Alex Jones doesn't mean that they're not going to do it. They are going to do it. We know they're going to do it. And warning them, the left is not going to like the consequences. Well, we've been hearing that for 35 frickin' years now from the conservatives, just done nothing. After reading Anti-Fragile, it sheds a new light on Shapiro criticizing Ocasio-Cortez. Possibly, okay. Did the comic shop mailing campaign go well? It's just starting in the UK. It will start next in the US in a couple weeks. We need to get the Avalon #1s to the legend Chuck Dixon so he can sign it, and then they'll go out. Let's see here. It would be awesome if you debate Jared Taylor on white nationalism. I can't say that I'm terribly interested in that. I'm not opposed to it. I'm certainly not afraid of it, but I don't really see that as being particularly relevant these days. Today, Owen Benjamin was dogging Shapiro and said he likes Vox Day. Well, that's very kind of him. Nice to hear that he's come around. Do you think crypto is the future? I can easily see you getting forced off Indiegogo. Yeah, it's entirely possible. I think it's a little bit less likely once some of the news that comes out about some of our partners. I don't think that they're going to be quite as likely to mess around with us once they understand that, we've got partners who are a lot bigger than theirs. Do you still talk to Cernovich? I talk to Mike, I would say regularly, although not frequently. Jared Holt of Right Wing Watch got out. Okay, fine. Let's see. Your thoughts on Rollo Tomasi and his book, The Rational Male? Rollo's a good guy, and he has a lot of ideas that are pertinent for young guys who are chasing women. And, he generally knows what he's talking about. Do you think that if something similar today was happening 150 years ago, it would be fought against with war? No question. The West is demoralized, de-Christianized, and weak. And that is why it's happening. That's why people are just taking it. They have, it doesn't help. Obviously, the leadership is, and the system is now against the people. It used to, 150 years ago, the government was more or less in line with the people. Now the government is openly and overtly against them for the most part. Obviously, the Trump administration is different, but we all know that the system is not big fans of that. Scott Adams is right. You guys are so obsessed on Cortez, you will lift her up to the presidency eventually. That's absolutely ridiculous. Scott Adams is wrong. Scott Adams does not know what he's talking about. Scott Adams is interesting, but he is wildly overrated, and he likes to, if you're intelligent enough, you can see that Scott likes to play the game of guess, 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 and he doesn't actually make a commitment until he thinks it's obvious. That's why he backtracked on his prediction about Trump and was wrong when Trump actually did go ahead and win. And after the fact, kept trying to point to his predictions that Trump was going to win, and quietly trying to sweep his prediction that Trump was going to lose under the table. I don't really understand what the point of Scott's it's all a game, I'm always right, clown nose on, clown nose off. I don't really understand that. I don't understand what he's trying to prove, but I don't take him terribly seriously when it comes to that kind of stuff. Also, not only has there never been a female president, but congressmen almost never, congressmen almost never become president. If she was a governor, he might have a case, but she's going to be a congresswoman. She's not even going to be a particularly significant one in 4 years. How long do Peterson and Shapiro have before the consensus among the right wing is that they are frauds? Well, I think that after my next Box of Versity video comes out, I think a lot more people who used to be Peterson fans are going to be convinced that he is not merely a fraud, but that he is the enemy. I put a lot of material, I compressed a lot of material into about a 20-minute video, and I believe that if my producer works his usual magic, I think it's going to be extremely effective. Let's see here. White people are beginning to lean more conservative the more they're informed of our demographic. That's not really true. They're not leaning conservative because they're being informed of demographic replacement. They're beginning to lean more conservative because they are seeing for the first time that the whole civic nationalism idea has failed. That's what's moving them right. You're seeing people moving right all over the place, and I predicted this because eventually it was going to inevitably devolve into the white party and the not white party. I was writing about this 10 years ago on WorldNet Daily. What's happening now is not a mystery. It was inevitable. Let's see. Will Jordan Peterson save humanity? No. Key point to look for in the book, The Landmark Herodotus. I couldn't possibly tell you. I will tell you that the key point to look for in The Landmark Thucydides is, I believe it might be chapter 27, but there's this amazing chapter on democracy and civil war. And what's amazing about it is when you read it, it could be written today. And when you realize it was written 2,000 years ago, then you realize how little has changed about human nature. You also realize how intelligent people were back then. They were just as smarter than we are. Let's see. Will Castalia House be publishing Brian Niemeyer? No, I don't believe so. He's doing great on his own. We're actually tending to lean away from publishing people that are doing well on Amazon. Any time frame you can give for hearing more news on the alt-hero film and Hollywood alternatives? I suspect that we will have some news, a little bit of news by the end of August. A friend started to be a supporter to the Alternative for Deutschland because he lost his job to outsourcing. Yeah, that's exactly how people change their mind. Stuff happens to them, stuff happens to their family, stuff happens to their friends. That's why people change their mind. Most people don't change their mind based on information. Come on. Aristotle told us this 2,400 years ago. You're not going to convince most people by giving them new information. That's not why they change their minds. Let's see. Will Peterson snap on Lat TV? I have no idea. I mean, he'll snap eventually, but who knows? Let's see here. Cortez is a good bio-Leninist candidate. Latina woman, millennial, loyal to the cause. Cannot get her out of people's heads. Adams warns about that fact. Apparently he saw... Again, Scott Adams doesn't know what he's talking about. He's totally wrong. There's literally nothing that Trump and Cortez have in common. It's a totally different situation. Cortez is going to be supported by the media. Trump, survived the fire of the nonstop media assault. She's a woman. He's an alpha. I mean, it's totally ridiculous. Christian Picciolini says that Sam Harris is a gateway to the alt-right. That's utterly idiotic. Sam Harris is intended to be a gatekeeper. Now, he's not much of a gatekeeper, but that's absolutely untrue. Sam Harris is not a gateway to the alt-right. Jordan Peterson is not, and Ben Shapiro is not. They are all intended to keep people from moving to the right. They're all anti-nationalists. Is Disney willing to go bankrupt over ideology, or will they change policy? Disney's not going to go bankrupt. They've got too many good assets to go bankrupt, but they're absolutely willing to sacrifice profits for ideology. That's why they exist. What do you think Aristotle's IQ was? I don't know, but it was definitely higher than mine. How can Europe and America help Germany revitalize in a healthy manner? I don't think Europe and America can help Germany do anything. They have their own problems. Right now, Italy, of the major countries, Italy is doing the most to save itself. What do you think about Greg Johnson's anti-Christianism? I think it's stupid. I think it's totally wrong, and I think that it's one of the reasons why he's going to continue to remain largely irrelevant, despite the fact that he does have some good points. Christianity is absolutely vital to the West. A lot of the trouble that we're seeing today is because the West, Europe, and the USA is insufficiently Christian. You will notice that we did not have these problems when Christianity was dominant. That is not an accident. Watch my video on Voxiversity. Go to the Voxiversity channel and watch part 1 of why Western civilization needs Christianity. What people like Greg Johnson don't seem to understand is that if you cut the branch off from the tree, the branch falls to the ground. You cannot have Western civilization, which is a synonym for Christendom, without Christianity. It's all of these pagan LARPers and atheists and stuff. They have no idea whatsoever what they're talking about when they talk about, well, we want Western civilization, but we want it without Christianity. Well, you can't have that. That's like saying, well, if we just send the Constitution to Liberia, it's going to be just like the U.S. It's not. How far do you think Orban can take Hungary ahead? I think that he will. I think that he will do well. The youth polls hard left. The youth is always stupid. They have no experience. They have no information, and they've been maleducated. Eventually, reality creeps in. The problem, of course, that he has is that the more success Orban has, the more insulated the young people are from the consequences of their bad preferences. Let's see. I would love to see Vox fight Varg in real life. Well, I don't know why we would fight. I mean, I understand that he's an outspoken atheist, but if you read The Irrational Atheist, you'll see that I have never had any trouble demolishing every single atheist on the subject of religion. You know, people have been, literally since 2006, people have been saying, oh, well, you can't possibly take on Sam Harris. He's brilliant. You know, so I demolish him, show the massive errors in his arguments. Well, you know, Sam Harris is one thing, but, you know, Richard Dawkins is something else. So, you know, you do the same thing, and then it's, you know, it's Michel Onfray, it's Christopher Hitchens. You know, there are no atheists who have any good anti-religious arguments. Varg is no different than any of the others. You know, he's not as intelligent as some of them. He's smarter than others. But he doesn't stand a chance. Let's see. Do you think there will be an establishment false flag with the Mueller probe before the midterms? I don't think so. I think there have been several attempts at false flags, but they're not moving the needle at all. You know, I mean, this is what I think people haven't understood since Sandy Hook. And the lesson of Sandy Hook is not, you know, whether Alex Jones is right or this or that or the other thing. The lesson of Sandy Hook is that Americans don't give a damn if you go in and you slaughter an entire elementary school full of kids. They are not going to accept more gun laws, period. You know, so there's no point. You know, there's the big Vegas shooting. There's this, there's that. It's not going to change anything. So I don't know why they would even bother continuing those sorts of false flags when there's just no chance of them making any difference whatsoever. I mean, I understand people can be stubborn, but still. Let's see. Why do none speak of the Zionist influence? What on earth are you talking about? All the alt-retard ever talks about is Jews. I mean, you guys really, you guys are really stupid. Do you understand how stupid that is? To say, oh, why does no one speak of this? People, you guys are talking about all the frickin' time. You can't go to the UNS review without people going on and on and on and on about Zionists and Jews and so forth. It's tedious, you know? Let's see. Did you see how a SPLC representative called Harris a white nationalist? Yeah, but that's irrelevant. I mean, they just throw words out that they often don't even know what the meaning is. You know, they just know that it means bad person. So, do you think Christianity has a problem with egalitarianism? Christianity does not have a problem with it, but organized churchianity absolutely does. Let's see. I don't have an opinion about Colombia. I don't know enough about Colombia to possibly have an opinion on it. Is Italy home free? No, of course not. There are still substantial barriers. I mean, Salvini and La Liga are not even the senior party in government. So Italy has a long way to go. Italy's not free of the EU yet. But I think the tragedy of the bridge in Genova collapsing is going to draw further attention to the fact that they can't pay for immigrants when they have decaying infrastructure. I mean, and that's something that the right should be pushing. An argument that the right should be pushing is immigrants or infrastructure. And clearly, they should be putting the emphasis on infrastructure spending rather than trying to, you know, turn immigrants into Italians. Yeah, I can attest to how difficult that is. Do you think the Americans are coming into conflict with the Jewish population? Yes, obviously. I mean, that's the historical pattern with the Jewish population. You know, we're the American population is clearly at that point where their interests are no longer in line with the diaspora Jewish interests. Let's see. Do you think Trump would be willing to restore the U.S. states back to their pre-Civil War sovereign status? I think theoretically he might be. I don't think that he's likely to. I personally think that Trump is doing his damnedest, and I hope that he is successful in his war against the deep state. I hope he's successful in building the wall, but I wouldn't hope for much more than that. You know, he's buying the USA more time. I very much doubt that he is going to be able to turn around the decadence and the decay that we see. So, anyhow, that's all I've got time for tonight, but thanks for tuning in. Real quick, I mentioned the Indiegogo campaign. It is coming. Don't know exactly when, but Alt Hero Q is going to be coming. The artwork is going to be fantastic. The script by the legend Chuck Dixon is amazing. And we'll look forward to seeing you all at the next Darkstream. And don't forget to subscribe at BitChute as well as YouTube. Have a good evening.